So, when we talk about discipline, often people just associate it with punishment. But that is not really the case. Discipline is not just about punishment. Punishment is only a little small part of discipline. So, we use a definition that says discipline is the practice of training people to obey rules or a code of conduct. And then also, discipline would refer to the organizational and managerial actions that school officials take to promote orderly environment that is conducive to education and school activities and that prevent and address misconduct. So there's the one aspect of it is teaching learners to obey rules, to follow rules, to behave in a manner that is respectful, to behave in a manner that is positive. And then the other part of it is making rules and enforcing rules, doing some organizational things that sets up an environment where it can be a disciplined environment and where teaching and learning and other school activities, be it sport, culture, extramural, and so on, can take place in a manner that is positive, that is a positive experience for everyone, where everyone's rights are respected, and obviously where education can take place. So in the green block, we have the nature of discipline, which involves creating order, promoting fairness. We cannot do discipline without being fair. The moment you are unfair, you absolutely lose the value of discipline. It should also be protective, protect people from harm, protect them from human rights violations, and so on, and protect the learning process. It should definitely be focused on character development. You need to remember learners are still children. They are still developing while we are all developing for the rest of our lives, but especially the learners are still young and they still need to learn how to behave, how to control their own emotions, how to control their own behavior, how to make choices that will have a good or positive outcome, and so on. So it's important to focus on character development. Sometimes we forget that children are children and we want to expect them to behave like adults. And if they don't behave like adults, we want to punish them for it. But we need to keep in mind that they are still developing their characters and focus on teaching on those moments for them to learn and that moments for them to grow rather than punishing them for not behaving like we think they should. And then discipline is also perspective. We are looking to the future, we are looking to positive outcomes and good consequences. And then we focus on correction, not retribution. So it's not about, I will show you, I will get you for this, you will be punished, you will suffer as the others have suffered, or whatever. Sometimes we might feel that way when a learner has behaved very inappropriately, but we need to remember it's about correcting the behavior, not getting back at them for what they have done. So these are the important principles or the nature of discipline and how we understand discipline and the departure point we use in this module for discipline. So when we talk about managing learning behaviors, we have a preventative and a reactive response. On the one hand, we want to look to promote discipline, to create an environment that makes discipline possible, that makes for a positive learning environment. On the other hand, we are dealing with people. There will always be incidences of misconduct and misbehavior, and we have to then respond to those in the correct manner. So in this PowerPoint, whenever you see the little hand with the heart, it refers to preventative approaches, and whenever you see the plaster, it refers to reactive approaches. So we say prevention is better than cure. It's better to create an environment that enables positive behavior than having a chaotic environment or a toxic environment even, and then we want to constantly respond to bad behavior, because obviously within a toxic or a bad or a chaotic environment, it's much easier for people to misbehave. It almost can be expected. So we need to focus first and all on prevention, on creating that space, that environment that is enabling for positive behavior. So it's important for us to know what causes misconduct and deal with those before misconduct can occur. So with a little bit of research, it's important for you as a teacher to get to know the psychology and the sociology behind misbehavior and misconduct. What are the typical things that cause problems? And then plan for them, plan around them. Things like uncertainty, things like when a teacher is poorly prepared for their class, things like psychological, neurological, and sociological issues, environmental impact, the way that the school is organized and structured. Is it chaotic or is it orderly and disciplined? There are many factors that influence people's behavior and children's behavior individually or when they function in a group as the learners do within a class or in a team or whatever the case might be. A very important part of managing good behavior or enabling good behavior is building strong relationships. I think I have mentioned this in one of our earlier classes, is when most of us as human beings, we have a need for connection. So connection will always be valuable to us. We are genetically programmed to seek out connection with other human beings. For children, there's a little bit of something added to that connection, and that is also looking to adults and caregivers for approval. So the stronger your relationship with your learners, the more they will be inclined to want your approval, or at least, if they don't necessarily need your approval, they would at least want to protect the relationship. They don't want to spoil the relationship or lose the connection. So building strong relationships gives them a motivation to behave well, to behave in a manner that protects the connection between you and them. Another thing that research has shown over and over is that a very knowledgeable teacher who does good preparation and provides good and stimulating lessons that keeps the learners busy with enjoyable activities and learning is the top number one best way to prevent misbehavior. As long as you know, you have good knowledge. So the knowledge that you find in the textbook is not enough. You cannot just work with the knowledge you find in the textbook. You must give the learners something more. You must make it interesting for them. Every one of us wants to learn. We are also genetically programmed to want to learn. It's sometimes school that spoils us and makes learning so unenjoyable that we lose our love for learning. But naturally, we want to learn. So if we make the learning fun, exciting, stimulating, interesting, the learners will engage. And as long as they are engaged, they will probably behave well. You don't give them time to misbehave. Whenever they are bored, they will misbehave. That's just the way it is. So you should make sure that you plan your lessons so well that there's not a moment that the learners are bored, because when they are bored, they will look for something else to do, and that something else might become a misconduct. We have spoken about building character. Look at things like enhancing morality. Look for responsibility. Teach your learners how to take accountability for their actions and their choices, and also their emotions. Self-control, even when you are angry, even when you are frustrated. You cannot just act out. You must control yourself. You must act in a manner that is respectful towards others. That type of thing. You have to teach learners that constantly and remind them constantly, because they are still young. They still have not developed this skill adequately. And then, of course, a system and a culture that promotes the greater good. We are not here as individuals just for ourselves and our own pleasures. We need to take one another into account. We are dependent on one another. We are interdependent. We cannot live, cope, flourish without one another. We need to protect one another. We need to respect one another. Take the other person into account. Have empathy, all this type of things. And then you have to definitely manage the learning environment. The environment must be the type of environment that is enabling for positive behavior, for also for enforcing the rules, enabling people to function within the classroom or whatever other space you have your learners in, effectively focusing on the reason why we are here. We are here to learn, let us learn. We are here to practice, let us practice. So the approach of positive discipline focuses on all of this character development and all the things that I've just mentioned. So it's important for you to know that all of these principles of positive discipline has been proven to be much more effective than a negative approach. So when we as a teacher have a negative approach, I know that you are going to be naughty and you should not think that you are going to take liberties with me, and I will make sure that you will listen to me. That type of approach will not be as effective as positive discipline. Often, a lot of us grew up in a culture where oppression and discipline are almost synonymous, and where children are shouted at, talked down to, belittled, degraded, or just totally disrespected. And a lot of people think that is discipline, but it is not. Also, discipline is not about controlling someone. If you want to control people, you will have an issue, because we are not supposed as human beings to control other people. We want to manage a situation. We want to promote an environment where we can all learn together. It's not for you to control people. So you have to kind of make a mind switch if that's the way that you grew up, if that's the way that you think about discipline. You need to kind of do a little bit of a reprogramming of yourself, so to say. Also, another thing that is very important is confidence. You often see that the teachers with more confidence struggle less with discipline. So also look at yourself and build your own confidence. The more comfortable you are with yourself and who you are and in your skin, the less threatened you feel when learners challenge you or disobey you. And they will challenge you and they will disobey you. They are supposed to, because that's the developmental age, especially of teenagers. Preteens, not so much. Preteens are still in a phase where they want to please you, most of them, not always. But especially teenagers, developmentally, they are supposed to challenge you. That's just the way that their psyche works. So don't get angry, don't get upset, just learn to manage it and work on yourself, your own emotional intelligence, your own confidence, and how you respond and how you think about discipline. Make sure you are prepared. Make sure you are an expert on the content so that you don't come and bore them with stuff that they already know or maybe even know more of than you. Then use strategies such as encouragement, a positive time out, having internal logic, arguing reasons for why we do this and not that. Also, sometimes it helps to have conversations with family or with parents. And sometimes for people, their name in the community is quite important, and it's important if we remind them that they should uphold their family name or their good name or their good standing. Again, establishing good relationships with learners. Also having good rules. Rules are important. But sometimes schools will have hundreds of rules with small little detail. No one can remember all those rules. It's ridiculous. You must have clear, plain and simple rules that are easy to remember and easy to follow, rather than saying, do not do this, do not do this, do not do this, do not, do not, do not do. We should say, what are our expectations? We behave in a respectful manner. We obey the teacher. We collaborate in the class. We cooperate, and so on. Also, include your learners in making class rules, in deciding on how in your classroom should you deal with a certain specific misbehavior, things like that. It's a great idea to include learners because they then take ownership. And when people take ownership, they are more inclined to stick to those arrangements because then it's arrangement between you and them and not just a top-down, I am the adult and I will tell you what to do and you will listen to me. Because that usually does not create a good and a positive environment. You as a teacher must be the expert. I've seen lessons where teachers teach about a topic and the learners know much more about the topic than the teacher. That simply will not get you a very good response from your learners. Your learners will not respect you. They will respect you if you come well prepared and you are an expert and you can teach them something, help them learn about something that is interesting, that is useful, that is new to them. Repeating, doing stuff that they already know, that will just bore them. And everyone knows, a bored child is a naughty child. So there's also the idea of the dream teacher, positive reintegration, participation in sports and extracurricular activities, praising positive behavior, having affirmative justice, and interventions and supports. So you can read through all of, I hope you have already read through all of this in, I think it's chapter 6 chapter 6 in the textbook, where all these principles of positive discipline are discussed. And then learn about them, learn more about them, do some research, find out what are the most effective forms of discipline and how to create a positive and enabling environment for your learners. So when we look at the legal side of all this, so we can say positive discipline, positive environment, which is important because it's in the best interests of the child. It promotes human rights, it promotes effective education, and so on. But then we also have to look at the legal part because the law tells us how to. So Section 8 of the Schools Act is all about learner discipline. And then the guidelines for a code of conduct, well, the long title, the proper title is Guidelines for the Consideration of Governing Bodies in Adopting a Code of Conduct for Learners. That document is in your statutes, and that document gives a lot of guidance, not only for drafting a code of conduct, but also for managing learner discipline in general. There's some principles and so on. So what we are going to do now is I want you to study section 11 as well as section 10 in that document, the guidelines for a code of conduct. And then go to the Padlet, or you can do this on WhatsApp, and name examples of behavior that you see fits into either misconduct or serious misconduct, and also suggestions on how the teacher can handle it in your class. How, when you are teaching, how can you respond to different forms of misconduct in your class?